I signed the papers for the house on Driftwood Lane because I was desperate for silence, buying my freedom with a 30-year mortgage and a view of the gray Atlantic. I thought I had finally outrun the noise. Then my sister Tessa called. She was not asking to visit. She was announcing an invasion involving 12 strangers and a lifetime of boundary violations. I should have known that in my family. Peace is just space waiting to be conquered. The key was heavy in my palm. It was a simple piece of brass, unpolished and cold. But as I stood on the porch of the gray-shingled cottage on Driftwood Lane, it felt like I was holding the detonator to a new life. The Atlantic Ocean was a churning slate of steel and foam just beyond the dunes, loud enough to drown out the phantom ring of my work phone and the accumulated noise of 33 years spent pleasing people who did not know how to say thank you. I turned the lock. The bolt slid back with a satisfying, mechanical thud. For the first time in my life, Ariana Foster, owned the silence. I stepped inside. The air in the hallway smelled of salt, old cedar, and the faint, sweet ghost of lemon polish left by the previous owners. It was not a mansion, it was a modest structure, built back when Seabright Cove was just a fishing village and not a battleground for developers and old money. The floors were heart pine, scarred from decades of sand and foot traffic. The windows were drafty, but it was mine. I dropped my bag on the floor and walked to the living room, which faced the water. I had cashed out my sanity at Stratos and Wren Consulting to afford the down payment. I had traded 5 years of 80-hour weeks, panic attacks in airport bathrooms, and a permanent knot of tension in my shoulders for this specific view. I wanted quiet mornings. I wanted therapy walks, where the only goal was to see how far the tide had gone out. I wanted a life that was not run by the urgent, selfish demands of other people. My phone buzzed in my back pocket. I ignored it. I walked into the kitchen, running my hand over the laminate countertops. I needed to set boundaries. That was what Dr. Evans had told me during our last session before I moved. She had said that a house is a physical boundary. Ariana, it is a wall between you and the world. You determine who comes in. I had already decided on the rules. No spare keys for my mother, who had a habit of rearranging furniture to suit her taste while I was at work. No open-door policy for cousins who needed a place to crash between breakups. I had learned the hard way that in the Foster family, being nice was viewed as a weakness to be exploited. Being nice meant you were the one who handled the estate paperwork while everyone else cried. Being nice meant you paid the dinner bill because you had the corporate job. Being nice turned into being used, and I was done being useful. The phone buzzed again, then again. I pulled it out, feeling the familiar spike of cortisol. The screen lit up with a photo of my older sister, Tessa. She was smiling in the picture, her head thrown back, looking effortless and golden. I stared at the screen. I could not ignore her on closing day. If I did, she would call Mom, and Mom would call the police to do a welfare check because she would assume I had fallen off a cliff. That was how they operated. They weaponized concern to force compliance. I swiped answer. "Hello?" "Tessa," I said, keeping my voice level. "Ariana!" Her voice was a bright, sugary explosion, so loud I had to pull the phone away from my ear. "Oh my God. You did it. You actually bought the beach house. I am so proud of you." "Thank you," I said. "I am just walking through the front door. I can just picture it," she gushed. "It must be so peaceful. You deserve this, Ari, so much. You have worked so hard. You really need to just unplug and let go of all that stress." My shoulders relaxed. Just a fraction. Maybe I was being cynical. Maybe she was genuinely happy for me. "I really do," I said, leaning against the counter. "It is beautiful. Tessa, you can hear the ocean from the kitchen." "I knew it!" She practically squealed. "That is exactly why we need to celebrate." The word hung in the air, sharp and hooked. Celebrate. I hesitated. I'm not really up for hosting yet. "Tessa, I have not even unpacked a box. I just want to sleep for a week." "Oh, stop," she laughed, a dismissive sound that brushed my needs aside like crumbs on a table. "We do not need you to host. We are going to take care of everything. That is why I called. I have the best news. My stomach began to twist. What news? I am coming down this weekend, she announced. Tessa, I said, my grip on the phone tightening. I just told you. I have no furniture. I have no food in the fridge. Do not worry about that. We are bringing everything. It is going to be a total girls' weekend. Just a celebration of you and your new life. It will be so fun. I have already told everyone how cute the place is. Everyone? I asked. The word came out colder than I intended. Who is everyone? Just some friends, she said breezily. You know, a support squad. We all need a break. It is just me and 12 others. I blinked, staring at the empty living room. 12? 12 plus me. She clarified. So 13? But do not panic. Most of them will sleep on air mattresses or the floor. We are low maintenance. We just need the space. 13 people. I repeated. Tessa, no. There was a silence on the line. It lasted only a second, but the temperature of the conversation dropped 30 degrees. What do you mean? No, she asked. Her voice had lost the sugary lilt. It was flat now. I mean no, I said, trying to summon the authority I used in boardrooms. I just bought the house today. I am not having 13 strangers stay here this weekend. I am not ready for guests. They are not strangers. Ariana, she snapped. They are my friends. And honestly, I am a little shocked. I call you up to congratulate you, to bring you a housewarming party because I know you are down there all alone. And this is how you react? I did not ask for a party. I said, you never ask for anything, she countered, her voice rising into that familiar pitch of righteous victimhood. That is your problem. You sit around acting like a martyr, and then when people try to do something nice for you, you shut them down. It is incredibly selfish. Ariana, you finally have something nice, and the first thing you do is hoard it? I am not hoarding it, I said, my heart rate climbing. I am moving in. We are just asking for a place to crash, she said. God, you act like we are going to burn it down. We are bringing groceries. We are bringing wine. You will not have to lift a finger. We are trying to celebrate you. Why do you have to make everything so difficult? I closed my eyes. I could feel the old programming kicking in, the deep-seated fear that I was, in fact, the difficult one, that I was cold and ungrateful. I cannot host 13 people. Tessa, I said, but my voice lacked the steel it had a moment ago. There is only one bathroom. We do not care, she insisted. We are beach bums. We will pee in the ocean if we have to. Come on, Ari, please. Mom is so excited. She already told Aunt Carol and the cousins that you were hosting my friends. She said it was so good to see you finally opening up. My hand froze on the countertop. Mom knows? I asked. Of course she knows, Tessa said, and I could hear the smirk in her voice. She told everyone, if you say no now, you are going to make her look like a liar. Is that what you want? You want to humiliate Mom after everything she has done for you? Checkmate. I stood there in my empty, quiet kitchen, listening to the ocean roar outside, feeling the walls of my sanctuary already beginning to crack. If I said no, I would unleash a family hurricane that would last for months. The guilt trips, the passive-aggressive texts, the weeping voicemails from my mother about how I had abandoned the family values. If I said yes, I lost my peace. I looked at the water. I needed to negotiate. I needed to salvage something. Fine, I said. The word tasted like ash. Yay, Tessa screamed. Oh my God, you are the best. Wait, I said, cutting her off. I am not done. There are conditions. She laughed. A light, tinkling sound. Ooh, strict Ariana. Okay, shoot. What are your demands? 2 nights. I said, Friday and Saturday. You leave Sunday morning. Done, she said. And quiet hours. I added, this is a residential neighborhood. Tessa, it is not a resort. No loud music after 10 at night. Boring, she teased. But sure, we will whisper. And absolutely no parties, I said, my voice hardening. I mean it. No inviting other people over, just the 13 of you. If I see one random person, the weekend is over. Tessa laughed again, like I was a child playing pretend with a plastic gavel. You are so adorable when you try to be tough. Of course, Ari, no ragers. We are there to relax, just like you. We are going to do face masks and drink green juice. You will hardly know we are there. I doubt that, I muttered. I will send you the details. Tessa said, Love you. Mean it. The line went dead. I lowered the phone and stared at it. I felt dirty, like I had just agreed to sell a part of my soul for the price of avoiding an argument. I had owned the house for less than an hour, and I had already surrendered the keys. I needed air. I walked out the back door onto the deck. The salt air hit my face, brisk and cleansing. The dunes rolled away toward the water, covered in sea oats that whipped in the wind. To my left, the neighboring house was a weathered blue structure with a pristine lawn that looked like it had been trimmed with manicure scissors. A woman was standing at the edge of the property line. She looked to be in her 60s, with skin the color of tanned leather and hair cut into a sharp, functional white bob. She was wearing a windbreaker and holding a garden hose like a weapon. She was watching me. I raised a hand, forcing a smile. Hello? I called out over the wind. She did not smile back. She turned off the nozzle of her hose and walked over to the low wooden fence that separated our yards. Her movements were stiff but athletic. She looked like someone who had spent a lifetime swimming against currents. You the new owner? She asked. Her voice was raspy, like sandpaper on wood. Yes, I said, walking down the steps to meet her. I am Ariana Foster. I just closed today. She looked me up and down, her eyes narrowing behind rimless glasses. She took in my city clothes, my pale skin, the anxious way I was holding my phone. Hallie Quinn. She said, Nice to meet you. Hallie, I said, It is beautiful here. It is quiet here, she corrected. That is why we pay the taxes we pay. I nodded, sensing the warning in her tone. That is exactly why I bought the place. I am looking for quiet. She snorted. Everyone says that. Then they bring their dogs that bark at the wind, or their kids that scream at the seagulls, or they rent it out to frat boys who think a deck is a stage. I am not renting it out, I assured her. It is just me. Hallie looked at the house behind me, then back at me. Just you? Just me, I said. She seemed to chew on this information. Well, that is a start, but you should know. The council watches this street like a hawk. The council? I asked. Seabright Dunes Homeowners Council. She said, They are not the friendly welcoming committee. They find first and explain later. And let me tell you something. Ariana Foster. They love outsiders even less than they love loud families. You keep your grass cut. You keep your trash bins out of sight. And you keep your noise down. If you do not, Dale Mercer will be on your porch with a citation before you can pour your morning coffee. Dale Mercer? I asked. President of the HOA, she said. A man with too much time and a measuring tape he likes to use on other people's hedges. Watch out for him. She turned back to her garden, dismissing me. Welcome to the neighborhood. She threw over her shoulder. Try not to ruin it. I stood there for a moment, watching her yank a weed out of the ground with terrifying efficiency. My anxiety, which had been simmering since Tessa's call, began to boil. I walked back inside. On the kitchen island, which I was sure had been empty 10 minutes ago, sat a thick, cream-colored envelope. I stared at it. How had it gotten there? I must have missed it when I first walked in, or perhaps the realtor had left it. I picked it up. It was heavy, made of expensive cardstock. The logo on the front was an embossed lighthouse with the words, Seabright Dunes Homeowners Council, Welcome to the Community. I tore it open. Inside was not a greeting card, but a 20-page booklet bound with a gold staple. I flipped through it. It was a list of rules so exhaustive it bordered on pathology. Rule 4.2. No laundry lines visible from the street. Rule 7.1. All exterior paint colors must be approved by the Aesthetic Committee 3 months in advance. Rule 9.5. No vehicles with commercial branding allowed in driveways overnight. And then, on page 12, a paragraph highlighted in bold. Rule 12.3. Short-term rentals are strictly prohibited. Commercial filming, photography shoots, and content creation for commercial purposes are forbidden without a permit and a majority vote from the council. Violation incurs an immediate fine of $5,000 per day. I frowned. Commercial filming? That seemed oddly specific for a quiet residential town. I had not mentioned filming to anyone. I worked in management consulting. The most exciting thing I filmed was a PowerPoint presentation. I tossed the packet on the counter. It felt heavy, like a brick. Between Hallie's warning and this draconian rulebook, I felt a sudden, sharp need to protect myself. I needed to prepare. I went out to my car and popped the trunk. I had brought a few essentials for the first night: sleeping bag, toiletries, a bottle of wine, but I had also brought my just-in-case kit. I grabbed the box containing the new smart doorbell I had bought on impulse. I spent the next hour installing it. I was not handy, but fear is a great motivator. I drilled into the door frame, connected the wires, and synced it to my phone. When the camera feed popped up on my screen, showing a fisheye view of my empty porch and the dunes beyond, I felt a tiny measure of control return. I did not stop there. I walked through every room of the house with my phone, taking high-resolution photos. I photographed the pristine condition of the hardwood floors. I photographed the unblemished walls. I photographed the bathroom tiles, the kitchen cabinets, even the inside of the oven. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself that Tessa was my sister, not a tenant from hell. But I could hear her voice in my head. You are so adorable when you try to be tough. And I knew better. Tessa did not destroy things out of malice. She destroyed them out of negligence. She was a tornado that believed it was a gentle breeze. I sat down on the floor of the living room, the sun beginning to set, casting long orange shadows across the room. I opened my text thread with Tessa. I needed to put it in writing. I typed out the message carefully. Tessa, looking forward to seeing you. Just to be clear on the house rules, since the HOA is very strict here. 1. Maximum 13 people total, no extra guests. 2. Quiet hours start at 10 p.m. The neighbors will call the police. 3. No parties. 4. Please be careful with the floors/walls. I just bought this place. 5. 2 nights only. I read it over. It sounded stiff. It sounded like a landlord. It sounded exactly like the person Tessa accused me of being. I sent it anyway. My stomach twisted as I watched the delivered status appear. I was already exhausted. I had not even spent one night in my sanctuary. And I was already bracing for a siege. The sun dipped below the horizon, and the house filled with the blue-gray light of twilight. I unrolled my sleeping bag in the middle of the living room floor. I did not have curtains yet, so the black square of the sliding glass door stared back at me like an unblinking eye. I lay down, listening to the wind rattle the frame. I tried to focus on the sound of the ocean, tried to recapture that feeling of the key in my hand. But it was gone. My phone chimed. I grabbed it, expecting a sarcastic reply from Tessa. But the message was not from Tessa. It was from a number I did not recognize. There was no profile picture, no name, just a text bubble floating in the dark. Heard you are hosting. Hope you are insured. I stared at the words. The blood drained from my face. I sat up, my heart hammering against my ribs. I looked at the glass door. All I could see was my own reflection, pale and wide-eyed, and the darkness pressing in from the outside. Who knew? I had told no one but Tessa. I typed back, "Who is this?" The 3 dots of a reply appeared, danced for a second, and then vanished. No answer. I stood up and checked the front door. Engaging the deadbolt, I checked the back door. I checked the windows. The house, which had felt like a lung filling with air only hours ago, now felt like a cage. I looked at the text again. Hope you are insured. It was not a friendly tip. It was a threat. And somewhere out there, in the dark salt air of Seabright Cove, someone was watching my house, waiting for the show to begin. Part 2. The morning of the invasion broke with a deceptive calm. The sky was a bruised purple that lightened slowly to a pale, innocent blue. I had slept fitfully, waking at every creak of the floorboards, clutching my phone like a talisman. The text message from the night before sat in my inbox. Unanswered, a digital stain I could not scrub away. I spent the early hours trying to reclaim the space. I drank coffee on the deck. Watching the sunrise burn the mist off the dunes, I told myself I was overreacting. It was probably a wrong number, or maybe one of Tessa's friends had the wrong digit and was trying to be funny. But the knot in my stomach remained tight. Tessa had agreed to arrive at 4 p.m. I had planned to use the day to clean again, maybe buy some toilet paper and basic groceries, and mentally prepare myself. At 1 p.m, my phone buzzed. It was a notification from my new doorbell camera. Motion detected at front door. I frowned. I was in the kitchen. I walked to the front window and pulled back the temporary paper shade I had taped up. My jaw dropped. They were here. 3 cars were jammed into my 2-car driveway. One of them parked halfway on the lawn. Hallie Quinn's pristine, forbidden lawn. I threw open the front door. Tessa was standing by the trunk of a white SUV, wearing a wide-brimmed hat and oversized sunglasses. Directing traffic like a general? "Okay, put the glam bags in the foyer," she was shouting. "And be careful with the lighting kit." "Tessa," I called out, stepping onto the porch. "You are early. 3 hours early." She spun around, her face lighting up with a smile that did not quite reach her eyes. "Ari, surprise? We made good time, and I just could not wait to see you." She ran up the steps and engulfed me in a hug that smelled of expensive perfume and hairspray. She squeezed too hard, rocking me back and forth. "Move your car," I whispered urgently into her ear. "You are on the neighbor's grass. The HOA will kill me." She pulled back, laughing. "Oh, relax. Nervous Nellie. It is just a tire." She turned back to the driveway. "Ladies, this is the homeowner, my baby sister, Ariana." I looked out at the friends. My heart sank. These were not friends. Friends arrived with duffel bags and a case of beer. These women were unloading equipment. One woman, tall and severe in a black jumpsuit, was carrying a professional-grade camera with a lens the size of a telescope. Another was struggling with a massive circular ring light. A third was holding a stack of clipboards and handing out printed schedules to the others. "Tessa," I said, my voice low and dangerous. "What is that?" "What is what?" she asked, blinking innocently. "The camera, the lights, the schedules." "Oh, that?" She waved a hand dismissively. "That is just for memories. We want to document the weekend, you know, for the gram." One of the women, a blonde with a headset around her neck, marched up the stairs. "Hi, I am Chloe," she said, not looking at me but at the space behind me. "I am the event planner. Is the main room cleared for the welcome circle? Or do we need to stage it?" "Event planner?" I repeated. Tessa stepped between us. "Chloe is just helping organize. We wanted to make sure we did not waste a minute of your hospitality." Tessa grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the door. "Come on, let me introduce you." It happened so fast. I was socially steamrolled. Tessa introduced everyone at a breakneck speed that made it impossible for me to object to any single person. "This is Becca. She is a brand girl." Tessa pointed to a woman typing furiously on a phone. "This is Lila. She is a life coach. This is Sarah. She does visuals." I caught fragments of titles that meant nothing in the real world, but everything in the economy of attention. Content strategist, vibe curator. "Wait," I said, trying to find my footing. "Hello, everyone. I am Ariana." They looked at me. Some smiled. Some just assessed me like I was a piece of furniture that might be in the way. "I need to go over the rules," I said, feeling like a schoolmarm. Tessa groaned. "Ari, seriously? We just got here." "Rules," I said, looking at the woman with the camera. "First, shoes off. The floors are original heart pine. Second, quiet hours are strict. And third," I looked at the ring light. "No professional filming. I saw the HOA packet. I cannot have commercial shoots here." The woman with the camera lowered it slightly. Tessa let out a high, incredulous laugh. Commercial? Ari, it is just for fun. We are just girls having fun. You are so tense. It is embarrassing. She hugged me again, whispering the last part into my hair. Relax. You are ruining the vibe. She pulled away and clapped her hands. Okay, everyone, dump your bags. Let's get the space ready. I stood there, paralyzed, as 12 women marched into my house. Within an hour, my sanctuary had been colonized. Furniture was being dragged across the floor I had just photographed. We need better light for the intro. Someone shouted. Candles, dozens of them, were being unpacked and placed dangerously close to my new linen curtains. Someone was taping decorations to the wall, using duct tape. Please, do not use that tape, I said, rushing over to a woman in a floral dress. It will peel the paint. She looked at me blankly. It is just for the aesthetic. She said, we will take it down later. It is my house, I snapped. She rolled her eyes and moved the tape 2 inches to the left. I retreated to the kitchen, my hands shaking. I felt like a ghost in my own home. I was not the host. I was an obstacle. A woman was standing by the sink, drinking a glass of water. She was dressed simply in jeans and a t-shirt, and she was the only one not holding a phone or a piece of equipment. She looked about my age, with dark circles under her eyes and a weary expression. Hi, I said. I am Ariana. I know. She said, I am Paige Lorne. She looked out at the living room, where Tessa was directing the woman with the camera to get a shot of her entering the space. You have a nice place. Paige said quietly, Thank you. I said, I just hope it survives the weekend. Paige looked at me. Her eyes were sharp, observant. They did not tell you. Did they? Tell me what? I asked. She hesitated, then lowered her voice. This is content. What do you mean? This is not a girls' weekend, Paige said. It is a launch. Tessa is launching her Phoenix lifestyle brand. All of this? She gestured to the chaos. It is for the real. We are props. My stomach dropped. But, I started. She cut me off with a look. I am not gossiping. I am warning you. Watch your back. Before I could ask her more, the doorbell rang. The chime echoed through the house, momentarily silencing the chatter. I walked to the door, my heart pounding. I opened it. A man stood there. He was short, wearing a polo shirt tucked into khaki shorts with military precision. He held a clipboard. Ms. Foster? He asked. Yes? I am Dale Mercer, he said, president of the Seabright Dunes Homeowners Council. My blood ran cold. Can I help you? I asked. We received a complaint, he said, his voice clipped, about an unauthorized gathering and parking violations. I looked past him. The white SUV was still on the lawn. I am so sorry, I said. My sister just arrived. I will have her move it immediately. He made a mark on his clipboard. See that you do. And regarding the gathering, it is just family. I lied. A housewarming. He looked over my shoulder. I followed his gaze. Through the open door, he could clearly see the ring light, the camera, and Tessa standing on a chair shouting. Okay, energy up, ladies. Family, he repeated, his tone dripping with skepticism. Yes, I said weakly. He reached into his back pocket and pulled out a yellow slip of paper. He handed it to me. This is a notice, he said. We have strict rules against commercial use of residential properties. If I see one more piece of equipment, or if I see this address on social media, the fines will be retroactive. He turned and walked away. I stood there, the yellow paper trembling in my hand. I closed the door and turned around. Tessa was standing right behind me. Who was that little troll? She asked. The HOA, I said. They are threatening to fine me. Tessa, you have to stop. No filming. She rolled her eyes. They are harassing us. That is discrimination. She did not look surprised. In fact, she looked almost vindicated. I walked past her into the kitchen. I needed water. I needed to think. On the counter, near where I had left the HOA packet, was a piece of paper I had not seen before. It was folded in half. I opened it. It was a document titled Location Release Form. My address, 14 Driftwood Lane, was typed at the top. I, the undersigned owner, hereby grant permission to Tessa Foster and associated entities to use the premises for the purpose of filming. My throat went dry. Nobody had asked me to sign this, yet someone had typed it up. Someone had prepared it. I looked up. Tessa was watching me from the doorway. Her smile was gone. "What is this?" I asked, holding up the paper. She shrugged. "Just paperwork." "Ari, don't be dramatic. It is just a little filming." "People do this all the time. You typed my address." I said, "You prepared a legal document to use my house. When were you going to ask me?" "I am asking you now," she said, her voice hard. "Look, I am helping you. You think you can afford this place on your salary? You need exposure. I am giving you exposure." I realized then that she was not asking. She never intended to ask. She was taking... I looked at my sister, really looked at her, and saw the stranger beneath the skin. She did not care about my peace. She did not care about my job. She viewed my life as raw material for her own. I crumpled the paper in my fist. "This is not a negotiation." "Tessa," I whispered. She smiled. A cold, sharp thing. "We will see," she said. And then she turned back to her crew. "Okay, ladies. Sunset in 10 minutes. Let's get the shot." I stood in the kitchen, the yellow HOA notice in one hand and the crumpled release form in the other, and I knew the war had begun. The silence of Driftwood Lane was not empty. It was heavy with a specific, curated kind of peace that I had paid a small fortune to secure. It was 1 o'clock in the afternoon on Friday. According to the text message agreement, the digital treaty I had struck with my sister, I had 3 hours of solitude left before Tessa and her friends arrived at 4. I was using the time to bond with the house. I know how that sounds, like I am some mystic talking to drywall. But when you spend 33 years feeling like a guest in your own life, ownership feels spiritual. I walked the perimeter of the living room, touching the window frames. I straightened the rug. I sat on the deck and watched the dune grass bow in the wind, telling myself that this was my reality now. I was Ariana Foster, homeowner. I was the woman who drank tea and watched the ocean. I was safe. Then, the gravel in the driveway crunched. It was a wet, grinding sound that shattered the afternoon. I stood up, my heart doing a traitorous double tap against my ribs. I checked my watch. 1:15. Maybe it was a delivery truck. Maybe it was the mail. I walked to the front window and peered through the slats of the blinds. It was not the mail. A white SUV, massive and gleaming like a spaceship, was forcing its way into my narrow driveway. Behind it, a convertible with the top down was idling, music thumping so loud I could feel the bass in the floorboards. And behind that, a third car, a black sedan, was pulling onto the grass, my grass. Hallie Quinn's sacred boundary line. I felt a surge of panic that tasted like metal. I threw open the front door and stepped onto the porch just as the doors of the SUV flew open. It looked less like an arrival and more like a tactical deployment. Tessa stepped out of the driver's seat. She was wearing a wide-brimmed straw hat and sunglasses that covered half her face. She looked glamorous, golden, and terrifyingly energetic. "We are here," she screamed, throwing her arms up to the sky. The passenger doors opened, and women began to spill out. They did not look like tired travelers. They looked camera-ready. Hair was voluminous. Makeup was precise. They were all wearing matching beige linen sets, like a cult that shopped exclusively at high-end boutiques. "Tessa!" I called out, hurrying down the steps. "You are early!" She spun around, her face breaking into a radiant smile that did not quite match the calculation in her posture. "Ari!" she squealed. She closed the distance between us and hugged me. It was a performative hug, the kind where her body barely touched mine, but she made a show of squeezing my shoulders for the benefit of the audience. "Surprise," she said, pulling back but keeping her hands on my arms. Pinning me in place, We made amazing time. The traffic was nothing. Aren't you happy? We get extra sister time. You are 3 hours early, I said, my voice tight. And that car, the black one, is on the neighbor's lawn. You have to move it, now. Tessa glanced at the car, then back at me, her smile faltering for a microsecond before reassembling itself. It is barely on the grass. Ari, don't be such a stress case. We literally just got here. The HOA is strict. Tessa, I said, lowering my voice so the others wouldn't hear. I am serious. The woman next door watches this place like a hawk. Please move it. Fine, she said, rolling her eyes. I will have Becca move it. But first, introductions. She turned to the group of women who were now swarming my front yard. They were opening trunks and pulling out bags. Not just suitcases. They were pulling out matching tote bags with the word Phoenix printed on them in gold leaf. Ladies, Tessa shouted, clapping her hands. Come meet the lady of the manor. This is my baby sister, Ariana. The women turned. There were 12 of them. A dozen faces, all polished, all assessing me with varying degrees of interest and judgment. Hi, Ariana, a few of them chorused. I stood there, wearing my old oversized sweatshirt and leggings, feeling underdressed at my own housewarming. Tessa grabbed my hand and began pulling me through the crowd, pointing at people with frantic speed. This is Chloe. She's the best event planner in the city. Tessa pointed to a blonde woman who was already barking orders at 2 others about load-in strategy. This is Becca. She handles brand integration. A brunette with a phone glued to her hand gave me a distracted wave. This is Lila, my life coach and spiritual guide. A woman with waist-length hair and a stack of yoga mats bowed slightly. This is Sarah. Visuals and photography. I froze. Sarah was not holding a beach bag. She was holding a Pelican case, the kind used for heavy-duty camera equipment. Beside her, another woman was struggling with a long black bag that was unmistakably a tripod case. Tessa, I said, pulling my hand away. What is all this? What is what? Tessa asked, blinking. The cameras, I said. The equipment. You said this was a girls' weekend. It is, she insisted. We are just girls who love high-quality memories. Sarah just wants to capture the vibe, you know, for the gram. It is 2024, Ari. Everyone documents everything. This isn't iPhone photos, I said, looking at the tripod. That is professional gear. Tessa laughed, a sound that was light and airy and completely dismissive. You are so cute. That is just Sarah's hobby gear. Stop worrying. You are going to give yourself wrinkles. She turned away from me before I could argue further. Okay, everyone, let's get the load-in done so we can do the opening circle at 2:30. Chop chop? Opening circle? I thought. I watched, helpless, as my front yard turned into a staging area. It looked like the backstage of a fashion show. There were garment racks. There were coolers. There were boxes of decorations. I saw one woman holding a clipboard, checking things off a list. I stepped closer to her. Hi, I said. I am Ariana. She looked up. She had a headset around her neck. Oh, hi, she said. I am just checking the run of show. Is the living room cleared? We need the natural light for the product placement shots before the sun moves. Product placement? I repeated. She looked confused. Then her eyes darted to Tessa, who was busy directing the luggage traffic. Just the gift bags, she said quickly. For the guests? I looked at the sheet of paper on her clipboard. It was titled, The Phoenix Retreat. Day 1 itinerary, 1 p.m., arrival. Staging 2 p.m., house prep/decor, 2:30 p.m., welcome circle, filmed, 3:30 p.m., brand activations/unboxing, 5 p.m., sunset cocktails, filmed, retreat. The word hit me like a physical blow. This was not a weekend hangout. This was a scheduled event. I felt the blood rushing to my face. I walked over to Tessa, who was trying to carry 3 tote bags at once. Tessa, I said, we need to talk. Not now. Babe, she grunted, heaving the bags up the stairs. I am sweating to death. Let's get inside. She pushed past me, and the floodgates opened. The 12 women surged up the stairs and into my house. I followed them, my anxiety spiking into the red zone. Inside, the noise was deafening. Suitcase wheels rumbled over the heart pine floors, the floors I had just sworn to protect. Voices bounced off the walls. "Oh my God, the view!" Someone screamed. "The light in here is perfect!" Someone else shouted. I stood in the foyer, watching them disperse. They were like an invasive species, rapidly adapting to the environment and consuming it. One woman, Lila, the life coach, was already moving my coffee table. "Wait, please don't move that," I said, rushing over. "The legs might scratch the floor." She looked at me with a serene smile. "We just need to open up the energy flow for the circle," she said. "It is too cluttered. It is my living room." I said, "It is just for the weekend," she said soothingly, as if speaking to a toddler. "We will put it back." Before I could stop her, 2 other women picked up my armchair and marched it into the hallway. I felt a hand on my shoulder. I flinched. It was Tessa. She was standing too close, her perfume overwhelming the smell of the ocean. "Ari?" she whispered. Her voice was low, intimate, but there was an edge to it. "You are hovering." She said, "I am not hovering." I said, "They are moving my furniture. They are just settling in." She said, "Look, I know this is new for you. I know you are used to being alone, but you are making people uncomfortable." "I am making them uncomfortable?" I asked, incredulous. "Tessa, you brought a production crew into my house." "It is not a crew," she hissed. "They are my friends. And you are looking at them like they are criminals. It is embarrassing." "Ari, Mom was right. The mention of our mother was a precision strike." "What did Mom say?" I asked, stupidly. "She said you would struggle with sharing," Tessa said, sighing dramatically. "She said you have been alone so long you have forgotten how to be around family. Prove her wrong, okay? Just for once, be the cool sister." She squeezed my shoulder again, hard, then patted my cheek. "Now, go put on something cute. You look like you're going to clean a garage. We are filming the welcome toast in 20 minutes. She turned and breezed away. I stood there, vibrating with a mixture of rage and shame. The shame was the worst part. It was the old familiar feeling that I was the broken one, the rigid one, the one who ruined the fun. I retreated to the kitchen. I needed a barrier. The kitchen island was already covered in supplies. Not groceries. Supplies. There were crates of green juice, boxes of protein bars, and stacks of branded water bottles. I saw a woman standing by the refrigerator. She was not wearing the beige linen uniform. She was wearing jeans and a black t-shirt. She was leaning against the counter, watching the chaos in the living room with a look of detached amusement. I walked over to the sink to get a glass of water. My hands were shaking. The woman looked at me. "You must be the sister," she said. "I am." I said, "I am Ariana." "Paige," she said. "Paige Lorne." She didn't offer a hand, just nodded. She seemed grounded, heavier than the helium-filled personalities in the other room. "I am sorry about the noise," I said, apologizing instinctively. "Don't apologize to me," she said. "It is your house." She took a sip from a coffee mug she must have brought with her. "You didn't know, did you?" she asked. "Know what?" "About the retreat," she said. I hesitated. Tessa said it was a girls' weekend. Paige let out a short, dry laugh. "Honey," she said, "this isn't a girls' weekend. This is content." She gestured with her mug toward the living room. "See Becca? The one with the phone? She is live streaming the arrival right now. See Sarah? She is setting up the lighting for the testimonials." "Testimonials?" I asked, my stomach twisting. "Yeah," Paige said. "For the Phoenix method, that is what Tessa is selling. A 12-step program to rise from the ashes of your old life. We are the test group." I stared at her. "You mean you paid for this?" Paige looked down at her coffee. "Yeah," she said quietly. "We paid a lot." "How much?" $2,000. She said, $2,000? I choked out. "Each," she clarified, "included lodging, meals, and a personal brand consultation. We were told the venue was an exclusive coastal sanctuary. She looked around the kitchen, her eyes landing on my modest coffee maker. She didn't tell us it was her sister's place until we were in the car. Paige added. I leaned against the counter, feeling the room tilt. 13 women, $2,000 each. That was $26,000. Tessa was making $26,000 this weekend, and she hadn't even offered to buy the toilet paper. Paige looked at me, her expression softening. Look, she said, I'm just telling you because you look like you're about to have a panic attack. They are going to steamroll you if you let them. These women, they are desperate for something to believe in, and Tessa is selling them a dream. Nothing gets in the way of the dream, especially not the homeowner. Before I could respond, Tessa burst into the kitchen. Okay, she shouted. Everyone to the living room. Shoes off, smiles on. She saw me and frowned. Ari, you are still in that sweatshirt? Whatever. Just stand in the back. Come on. She grabbed my arm and dragged me toward the living room. The space had been transformed. My furniture was pushed against the walls. In the center of the room, 12 yoga mats were arranged in a circle. In the middle of the circle was a massive arrangement of crystals and candles. Lit candles, flickering inches away from my rug. The curtains were drawn. The ring light was blazing, casting an artificial halo over the room. Tessa marched to the center of the circle. Okay, everyone, she said, her voice dropping an octave into a soothing, authoritative register I had never heard before. Find your mat. Ground yourself. We are about to begin the Phoenix Rising ceremony. The women sat down, crossing their legs. I stood in the doorway, feeling like an intruder in my own home. Sarah, the photographer, was prowling the perimeter, snapping photos. The shutter click was a rhythmic, insect-like sound. Click, click, click. I watched Tessa. She looked radiant. She looked powerful. She began to speak about trauma, about rebirth, about the power of female spaces, and as I watched, I realized the truth. She was not just using my house, she was using my story. We all have moments where we burn out, Tessa was saying, her eyes glistening. Moments where the world is too much. My own sister, Ariana. All heads turned to me. She has struggled so much, Tessa said, her voice trembling with manufactured empathy. She bought this house to heal, and we are here to bless it for her, to fill it with love, because she cannot do it alone. The women looked at me with pity. I saw tears in their eyes. They thought they were saving me. I felt a cold, hard knot form in my chest. It was not gratitude, it was violation. She was painting me as the broken charity case to validate her own status as the healer. I turned and walked out. I went to the deck and slid the glass door shut. I stood there, breathing in the salt air, shaking. I needed to stop this. But how? If I stormed in there and screamed, I would just prove her point, that I was unstable, that I needed healing. I heard a car door slam. I looked down at the street. A small, official-looking sedan had pulled up to the curb. A man got out. He was wearing a polo shirt tucked into khaki shorts. He was holding a clipboard and a measuring tape. It was Dale Mercer. I watched him walk up the driveway. He stopped at the black car parked on Hallie's lawn. He took a photo of it. He walked to the white SUV blocking the sidewalk. He took a photo of that. Then he looked up at the house. I knew what he could see. He could see the flash of the strobe light through the window. He could see the sheer number of people. I walked around the side of the house to meet him in the driveway. I wanted to intercept him before he rang the bell and interrupted Tessa's ceremony, which would only cause a scene. Mr. Mercer? I asked. Stepping onto the gravel, he turned. He had a face like a dried apple, wrinkled and sour. You are the owner? He asked. Yes, I said. Ariana Foster. He looked at his clipboard. Ms. Foster, he said. We have received complaints. I know. I said, the car. My sister's friend parked on the grass. I am having it moved right now. It is not just the car, he said. He pointed a pen at the house. We have reports of commercial activity. he said. What? I asked. No, it is a family gathering. Mr. Mercer smiled. But it was not a nice smile. We have eyes in this neighborhood. Miss Foster, we saw the equipment. We saw the schedule being handed out. The Phoenix Retreat. My stomach dropped. He knew the name. Someone found the flyer online, he said. Or maybe one of your guests tagged the location. Either way, this is a violation of Bylaw 12.3. No commercial events, no paid lodging. He ripped a yellow sheet of paper off his clipboard. This is a formal notice of violation, he said. You are being fined $500 for the parking infraction and $1,000 for the unauthorized commercial event. $1,000? I gasped. Per day, he added, until the activity ceases. He handed me the paper. You have 24 hours to vacate the commercial operation, he said, or we will escalate to a lien on the property. He turned and walked back to his car. I stood there, the yellow paper fluttering in the wind. $1,500. I had owned the house for 6 hours, and I already owed a mortgage payment's worth of fines. I marched back into the house. The circle was breaking up. The women were hugging each other, wiping away tears. Tessa was in the center, basking in the adoration. Tessa, I said. My voice was loud. It cut through the murmurs of namaste. She looked up, annoyed. Ari, we are in the integration phase. Can you give us a minute? No, I said. I walked into the circle. I held up the yellow paper. The HOA just came, I said. We are being fined. $1,500. The room went silent. Tessa rolled her eyes. She stood up, brushing off her linen pants. Oh, God. She sighed. They are so dramatic. Let me see that. She snatched the paper from my hand. She glanced at it, then tossed it onto the coffee table like it was junk mail. They are harassing us, she announced to the room. It is classic patriarchal gatekeeping. They see a group of powerful women, and they try to shut us down. A murmur of agreement went through the room. Yeah, stick it to the man, someone shouted. Tessa, I said, my voice shaking. It is not the patriarchy. It is the law. You are running a business in a residential zone. I am not running a business, she said calmly. I am hosting a gathering. You charge them. I said. The room went deadly silent. Tessa's eyes flashed, a dangerous, sharp look. We shared costs, she said smoothly. That is different. You charged them $2,000 each, I said. Paige told me. Tessa glared at Paige, who was standing in the back, sipping her coffee. Paige didn't flinch. Ariana, Tessa said, her voice dripping with condescension. You are embarrassing yourself. You are obsessing over money because you are operating from a place of scarcity. We are operating from abundance. I am operating from reality, I snapped. I have to pay this fine. Tessa, not you, me, she laughed. Oh, don't worry about the money, she said. I will cover it. It is a business expense. She clamped her hand over her mouth, realizing her slip. The room shifted. The women looked at each other. Business expense. Tessa recovered quickly. The collective will cover it. She said, we will manifest the abundance to handle it. Now, can we please get back to the vibe? You are ruining the energy. She turned her back on me. Okay, ladies. Who is ready for sunset cocktails? The group hesitated, then slowly turned back to Tessa. They wanted to believe her. They had paid too much not to believe her. I stood there, defeated. She was Teflon. Nothing stuck. I walked back to the kitchen, feeling a level of exhaustion I had never known. I saw a stack of papers on the counter. Next to the blender, it was a pile of waivers. I idly flipped through one, liability release, media release, and then I saw it. The bottom document. It was titled Location Release Agreement. My eyes scanned the text. I, Ariana Foster, owner of the property located at 14 Driftwood Lane. My name was typed. Hereby grant exclusive rights to Phoenix Lifestyle LLC to utilize the property for the duration of the weekend for the purpose of filming. And at the bottom, there was a signature. It was a scrawl. It looked vaguely like my signature, but I had not signed it. I felt the blood drain from my face. She had forged it. She had forged my signature on a legal release form so she could show her investors or her team that she had secured the location. My hands shook so hard the paper rattled. This was not just rude. This was criminal. I looked up. Tessa was in the hallway, grabbing a bottle of wine. She saw me holding the paper. She froze. For the first time, I saw real fear in her eyes, but it was gone in an instant, replaced by that terrifying, narcissistic confidence. She walked into the kitchen and closed the door behind her. "What are you doing snooping?" she hissed. "You forged my signature," I whispered. She scoffed. "I didn't forge it. I signed for you on your behalf, as your sister." "That is forgery." "Tessa," I said, "you have no right." "Oh, stop it," she snapped. "I needed the paperwork for the insurance file. You were busy working your soul-crushing job. So I handled it. I am helping you." "Helping me?" I sounded hysterical to my own ears. "You are fining me. You are lying to these women. You are using my house, and you are lucky I am," she shouted back. The kitchen went silent. "You think you are so special because you bought this little shack?" she said, her voice dripping with venom. "You are nothing without me. Ari, you are boring. You have no life. I am bringing life into this house. I am bringing value. You should be thanking me that I am even including you." I stared at her. I saw the truth then. It wasn't just that she was selfish. It was that she despised me. She despised that I had succeeded where she had stumbled. She despised that I had the credit score, the down payment, the stability. She believed she was entitled to my life because she believed she was the main character, and I was just the supporting cast. She believed she owned me. I looked at the forged signature. I looked at the yellow fine slip. I carefully folded the release form and put it in my pocket. "What are you doing?" she asked, eyeing my pocket. "I am done arguing," I said. My voice was flat, dead calm. "Good," she said, mistaking my resolve for surrender. "Now, put on a smile and come outside. We need you to hold the tray for the toast." She turned and walked out, confident that I would follow, confident that I would fold, just like I always did. But I didn't follow. I stayed in the kitchen. I took out my phone. I opened the camera app. I took a picture of the yellow fine notice. I walked to the window and took a picture of the cars on the lawn. I took a picture of the Phoenix retreat schedule. Then I texted Paige Lorne. "I know you paid. Do you have the receipt?" I watched the 3 dots appear. "Yeah. Why?" "Send it to me." I typed. I waited. A moment later, a screenshot appeared. A payment confirmation for $2,000 to Phoenix Lifestyle LLC. I saved it. I was not going to argue anymore. Tessa was right about one thing. I had been operating from a place of scarcity of self-respect. That ended tonight. I could hear them laughing on the deck, the clinking of glasses, the performative joy. I walked to the pantry and pulled out the internet router. I looked at the blinking green lights. Disconnect. I pulled the plug. The house went offline. The music streaming on the deck cut out. I heard a collective groan from outside. The Wi-Fi. The music died. I stood in the dark kitchen, holding the plug in my hand. Let the games begin. I woke up to the sound of angry bees. That was my first thought as I surfaced from a restless, shallow sleep on the living room floor. I had given up my bedroom to 2 of the guests because I was too exhausted to fight about it at midnight. Now, the morning light was gray and sharp against the sliding glass door. And the sound was not bees. It was a mechanical whine, high-pitched, persistent. I rubbed my eyes and sat up. The house was quiet in that heavy, hung-over way that suggests everyone else is still asleep. But the noise was coming from outside, close, too close. I stood up, my back aching from the thin sleeping bag, and walked to the glass door. I pulled back the makeshift sheet I had taped up for privacy. Hovering directly outside the glass, at eye level, was a drone. It was black, with 4 spinning rotors and a camera lens that looked like an unblinking robotic eye. It hung there, suspended in the salt air, staring at me in my oversized t-shirt and messy bun. I froze. It was like waking up in a sci-fi horror movie. Then, the drone dipped, banked left, and zoomed up toward the roofline. I unlocked the door and slid it open. The cold Atlantic wind hit me, waking me up instantly. I stepped onto the deck, down on the sand, beyond the dunes. A figure was standing with a remote control. It was Sarah, the woman with the hobby gear. She was wearing a parka over her pajamas, manipulating the joysticks with focused intensity. Beside her, a phone was mounted on a tripod, pointed directly at the back of my house. "Hey," I shouted. My voice cracked, dry from sleep. "Hey." Sarah didn't hear me over the wind and the surf. She tilted the controller, and the drone buzzed over my roof, presumably getting an aerial shot of the property. I ran down the steps, my bare feet hitting the cold wood. I crossed the small patch of yard and reached the sand. "Stop!" I yelled, waving my arms. "Land that thing right now." Sarah looked up, startled. She lowered the controller slightly. "Oh, hey Ariana," she called out, cheerful as if we were meeting for coffee. "The light is amazing right now. Just getting some B-roll." "Land it," I screamed. She winced at my volume but manipulated the sticks. The drone descended slowly, whining as it touched down on the sand a few feet away. I marched up to her. I was shaking, partly from the cold, partly from the violation. "What are you doing?" I demanded. "I told you yesterday. No commercial filming. The HOA is already fining me." "It is not commercial," Sarah said, looking offended. "It is for the recap video. Tessa wants a hero shot of the house for the intro." "I don't care what Tessa wants," I snapped. "You are flying a drone outside my bedroom window. You are recording my neighbors. This is illegal in this zone without a permit." Sarah rolled her eyes. "God, you are intense. It is just a drone." I walked over to the tripod and looked at the phone screen. It was recording. "Turn it off," I said. Sarah sighed and tapped the screen. "Fine, whatever. You are going to ruin the flow of the video." "Though, I do not care about the flow," I said. "Where is Tessa?" "Sleeping," Sarah said. "She needs her rest. Running a retreat is exhausting." I turned and walked back to the house. My blood was boiling. It was 7 in the morning on Saturday. I was supposed to be drinking coffee and reading a book. Instead, I was policing a film set. I entered the kitchen. The counters were a disaster zone of empty wine bottles, half-eaten cheese, and spilled crackers. I ignored the mess and went straight to the coffee maker. As I waited for it to brew, Tessa walked in. She looked remarkably fresh. She was wearing a silk robe and a sleep mask pushed up on her forehead. "Why are you screaming outside?" she asked, yawning. "You woke me up. They were flying a drone." "Tessa," I said, gripping the edge of the counter. "A drone. After I told you the HOA fined us yesterday." "Oh, that." She waved a hand. "Don't worry about it. Sarah knows what she is doing." I turned to face her. "No," I said. "No more. I want the filming to stop. I want the cameras put away." Tessa poured herself a glass of water. Ignoring me. "You are being hysterical. Ari, it is already posted." The words hung in the air. "What?" I asked. "The tour," she said. "I posted it last night. It is doing numbers. By the way, you should be happy. People love the house." I felt the blood drain from my face. "You posted a video of my house?" I asked. "My address?" "I didn't post the address." "Dummy," she said. "I just tagged the town. Seabright Cove. It is not a secret." I pulled my phone out of my pocket. My hands were trembling. I opened the social media app Tessa used for everything. There it was, top of her feed, a video titled, "Crashing My Sister's Beach House. Secret Retreat Reveal." I clicked play. The video started with Tessa's face. Close up, smiling conspiratorially. "Guys, you will not believe where I am. My baby sister finally bought a place, and we are breaking it in. Look at this view." The camera panned around my living room, my private space, showing the friends dancing, the view of the ocean, the bedrooms. Then came the voiceover. "She is a little uptight about the rules, but we are going to loosen her up. Watch us transform this boring cottage into the Phoenix Sanctuary." I looked at the comments. User 123. OMG, so beautiful. Where is this? Tessa. Reply. Seabright Cove. Hidden gem. Hater 88. Your sister sounds like a Karen LOL. Let loose. Local guy. I know that house. That is the old Miller place on Driftwood Lane. I walk my dog by there. My stomach dropped. They doxed me. I whispered, "What?" Tessa asked, buttering a piece of toast. Someone in the comments identified the house. I said, "They know where I live." Tessa, you put my safety at risk for likes? Oh, please, she scoffed. Nobody is going to come murder you. You are so paranoid. It is good publicity. Publicity for what? I asked. For you? At my expense? She turned to me, her eyes cold. Why do you have to make everything about you? She asked. I am building something here. I am trying to create a future, and you are standing there whining about a drone. You are so selfish. Ari, I couldn't speak. The gaslighting was so absolute, so confident, that for a second, I felt like the crazy one. I walked out of the kitchen. I needed an adult. I needed someone sane. I went into the bathroom and locked the door. I sat on the edge of the tub and dialed Kira Mendel. Kira was the HR manager at Stratos and Wren, my firm. She was also the only person I knew who understood the corporate implications of brand risk. She answered on the second ring. Ariana? She asked. It is Saturday. Is everything okay? No, I said. My voice was shaking. Kira, I have a situation. I explained everything. The surprise arrival, the retreat, the filming, the HOA fines, the video online. When I finished, there was a long silence on the line. Ariana, Kira said, her voice dropping into professional mode. You need to be very careful. I know. I said, does the video show anything illegal? Drugs? Alcohol with minors? No, just chaos. And me looking angry. Okay, she said. But the comments? The doxing? Yes. Listen to me. Kira said, Stratos and Wren has a conduct clause. You know this. Employees shall not engage in public behavior that compromises the firm's reputation for discretion and stability if this goes viral. And you are painted as the hysterical sister or the host of a nuisance party. It could be a problem. Clients Google us. Ariana, if they see you fighting with neighbors or hosting a scam retreat, it is a brand risk. I felt a cold sweat break out on my forehead. What do I do? I asked. Document everything. She said, prove you did not consent. Prove you tried to stop it. If the HOA sues or the cops get called, you need a paper trail that shows you were the victim, not the organizer, and get that video down if you can. I can't, I said. She won't listen. Then distance yourself, Kira said. Formally, in writing. Don't be a participant. Be the landlord. I hung up. Be the landlord. I unlocked the bathroom door and walked out. In the hallway, I ran into Paige Lorne. She looked as tired as I felt. She was holding her phone, frowning at the screen. Ariana, she said, can I talk to you? We stepped into the guest bedroom, the one currently occupied by 3 air mattresses. It was empty for the moment. Paige closed the door. I saw the video. She said, yeah. I said, look, she said, crossing her arms. I need to be honest with you. When I signed up for this, for the Phoenix retreat, Tessa told us it was a donated venue. Donated? I asked. Yeah. She said a wealthy benefactor believed in the mission and donated her coastal estate for the weekend. She made it sound like a partnership. I let out a bitter laugh. A wealthy benefactor. I have a mortgage I can barely afford. Paige nodded, looking sick. I realized that last night. She said, when you were talking about the fines, you aren't a partner. Ariana, you are the prop. She looked at the air mattresses on the floor. She charged us premium rates for a luxury experience, Paige said, and we are sleeping on the floor of your house while you panic about the HOA. It is a scam, I feel. Gross. I looked at Paige. She was a victim too. They all were, in a way. Tessa had weaponized their desire for self-improvement to fund her own ego trip. Paige, I said, I need your help. Anything. She said, I need proof. I said, I need to know exactly what she promised you, and I need that receipt you sent me to stay saved on your phone. I got you, she said. She hesitated, then added, also, you should know. The schedule for today? It includes a cleansing ceremony on the beach. With fire? Fire? I asked. A bonfire, she said. At sunset. My heart stopped. Bonfires are illegal on this beach. I said, the dunes are protected. The fine is $5,000. Paige winced. You better stop her, she said. I walked out of the room with a new energy. It was a cold, icy clarity. I was done being the sister. I was the landlord, and I was under attack. I spent the next hour gathering evidence. I didn't argue with anyone. I walked around the house with my phone. I took screenshots of Tessa's video and the comments doxing my address. I saved the footage from my doorbell camera showing the commercial equipment being loaded in. I photographed the scratches on the hardwood floor where they had dragged the furniture. I photographed the tape on the walls. I went into the bathroom and photographed the hair dye stains in the sink. Someone had apparently decided to do a makeover. I was building a case, not for a court, necessarily, but for the moment I knew was coming, the moment I would have to blow everything up to save myself. At 10 o'clock. There was a knock on the front door. I checked the app. It wasn't the HOA. It was Hallie Quinn. I opened the door. Hallie was standing there, looking grim. She was holding a piece of paper. Good morning. Hallie, I said, bracing myself for a lecture about the noise. She didn't lecture. She just handed me the paper. You might want to see this, she said. Found it on the community bulletin board at the coffee shop. I took the paper. It was a flyer, printed on bright yellow paper. Seabright Cove's newest gem. Luxury weekend rental available. Ocean views. Private deck. Steps from the beach. Perfect for retreats. Girls' weekends. And content creation. Inquire for rates. 555-0199. There was a photo of my house, a photo taken yesterday. Judging by the lighting, I felt the ground tilt beneath me. I never listed this. I whispered. I figured. Hallie said, that number? It isn't a local agent. I looked at the number. It was Tessa's cell phone. She is renting out my house. I said. My voice sounded hollow. Hallie looked at me, her expression softening from suspicion to pity. You have a squatter, honey, she said, and she is selling tickets. I looked at Hallie. Thank you. I said, you need to handle this. Hallie said, the council is meeting on Monday. If they see this flyer, they will vote to revoke your residency permit. You can't run a hotel in a single-family zone. I know. I said, I will handle it. Hallie turned to leave, then paused. If you need a witness. She said, I saw the cars. I saw the drone. I know you aren't the one flying it. Thank you. I said again. I closed the door. I walked into the living room. The circle was in session again. They were chanting something about abundance. I walked right through the middle of the circle. Tessa, I said. She opened one eye. Ari, we are manifesting. I held up the flyer. What is this? I asked. She opened both eyes. She saw the flyer and didn't even flinch. Oh, that, she said. I just put a few feelers out. Feelers? I asked. You are advertising my home as a rental. I am testing the market, she said, standing up. Look, Ari, this house is an asset. It sits empty all week while you are at work. Why not monetize it? I can manage the bookings for you. We split the profit 70-30. 70-30? I repeated. I do the work. I get the 70, she said, as if it were obvious. You just provide the building. I stared at her. The audacity was breathtaking. It was architectural. I never agreed to this. I said, you should be thanking me, she exploded, her voice echoing off the high ceilings. You are drowning in debt for this place. I am offering you a lifeline. I am helping you pay your mortgage. I am not drowning in debt. I said, I have a job, a real job. And for how long? She sneered. You are always one burnout away from quitting. You need this. Ari, you need me. I realized then that she truly believed it. She believed she was the savior. She believed that her exploitation of me was actually benevolence. She felt entitled to my house, my credit, my life, because in her mind, I was just a resource to be mined. I am not a resource. I thought, I am a person. I turned around and walked away. "Where are you going?" she shouted. "We need to discuss the bonfire logistics." I didn't answer. I went to my bedroom, or the room that was supposed to be my bedroom. I needed my laptop. I needed to email Mara Klein, a lawyer I had met once at a networking event. I needed to draft a cease and desist. I opened my work bag, which I had left in the corner of the room. It was empty. My laptop was gone. My heart hammered against my ribs. My work laptop. It contained confidential client data, Stratos and Ren data. If that machine was compromised, I wasn't just fired. I was sued. I tore through the room, under the bed, in the closet. Nothing. I ran out into the living room. "Where is my laptop?" I demanded. Nobody answered. They were all busy journaling. I ran into the kitchen. Nothing. I ran onto the deck. There, sitting at the patio table, was Becca, the brand girl. She had my laptop open. She was typing furiously. I felt a surge of rage so pure it was blinding. I crossed the deck in 2 strides. "That is mine," I said. Becca looked up, startled. "Oh, hey. Tessa said I could use it. My battery died and I needed to upload the dailies." "You are using my work laptop?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Do you have any idea what is on there?" "I didn't look at your files," she said defensively. "I just used the browser." I grabbed the laptop from her hands. I slammed it shut. "You guessed my password?" I asked. "No," Becca said. "It was on a sticky note in your bag." I cursed myself. The emergency backup password. I clutched the laptop to my chest. "Get off my deck," I said. "Excuse me?" Becca asked. "Get off my deck." She stood up, gathering her things. "You are so rude. Tessa was right about you." She flounced back inside. I sat down at the table, my hands shaking so hard I could barely open the lid. I checked the browser history. She had been uploading files to a cloud server, huge video files. But then I saw something else in the history, a tab that was still open in the background. It wasn't a video site, it was a banking site. Coastal Lenders. I clicked on it. It was a mortgage application page. Pre-approval inquiry. Applicant: Tessa Foster. Co-applicant: Ariana Foster. I stopped breathing. She hadn't just used my laptop for internet. She had used my auto-filled data. She had accessed my personal information stored in the browser. I clicked on the Details tab. She was applying for a home equity line of credit on my house, the house I had owned for 24 hours. I felt sick, physically, violently sick. This wasn't just a boundary violation. This wasn't just a bad sister. This was identity theft. This was financial fraud. I sat there, listening to the ocean, feeling the cold wind on my face. The house behind me was filled with laughter and music. They were celebrating. Tessa wasn't just here to party. She was here to cash out. She was going to drain the equity from the house before the paint was even dry. I closed the laptop. I stood up. I walked to the railing and looked out at the dunes. I was done being nice. I was done being the sister. I took my phone out of my pocket. I dialed the number for the Seabright Cove Police Department non-emergency line. Then I hesitated. If I called the cops, it was over. The relationship, the family peace. Mom would never forgive me. Tessa would be arrested, or at least humiliated. I looked at the house. I looked at Hallie's window next door. I looked at the flyer in my hand. I hung up. Not yet. I needed to be smarter than that. If I called the cops now, Tessa would spin it. She would say it was a misunderstanding. She would say I gave her permission. She had the forged release form. She had the text messages where I said yes to the visit. I needed indisputable proof of the fraud. I needed to trap her. I walked back inside. I went to the kitchen, where Tessa was mixing a green smoothie. "Tessa," I said. My voice was calm, unnaturally calm. "Yeah?" she asked. "I need to go into town," I said, "to buy more toilet paper." "Okay," she said, not looking up. Pick up more wine while you are there. And ice. I will, I said. I walked out the front door, got in my car, and drove away. I didn't go to the grocery store. I drove to the Seabright Cove Records Annex. It was a small brick building next to the library. I needed to see the property file. I needed to see if she had filed anything else, because if she was applying for a loan, she needed more than just a browser history. She needed deeds. She needed title info. I walked into the quiet, dusty room. I need to see the file for 14 Driftwood Lane. I told the clerk, I am the owner. She looked at my ID, then nodded. She went to a filing cabinet and pulled out a thin manila folder. She handed it to me. I opened it. There were the closing documents from yesterday. Standard stuff. But then, at the very back, was a piece of paper that had been time-stamped this morning. Request for copy of deed. Requester. T. Foster. She had been here, this morning, while I was sleeping. She was moving fast. I looked at the clerk. Who picked this up? I asked. A woman, the clerk said. Said she was your sister. Said she was handling your filing because you were sick. I nodded slowly. Can I get a copy of this request? I asked. Sure, the clerk said. I took the copy. I walked back to my car. I sat in the driver's seat and looked at the document. Tessa wasn't just a squatter. She was a predator, and she had brought 12 witnesses to watch her eat me alive. I started the car. I was going back to the house, but I wasn't going back as a victim. I was going back to burn the phoenix to the ground. The drive back from the records annex was a blur of gray asphalt and adrenaline. I had the copy of the deed request on the passenger seat, a physical testament to my sister's betrayal. But my mind was already racing ahead to the laptop I had left behind in the chaos. I pulled into the driveway. The music from the house was louder now. A thumping bass line that vibrated against the car windows. The white SUV was still blocking the sidewalk. The black sedan was still crushing Hallie Quinn's grass. I walked up the steps, bypassing the front door and going straight to the deck where I had confronted Becca. My laptop was still there, sitting on the glass table like an abandoned shield. Becca was gone, likely absorbed back into the activation circle inside. I reached for the computer, my hand closing over the cold aluminum, but as I pulled it toward me, I saw something else. Sitting right where the laptop had been, half hidden by a coaster, was a USB drive. It was small, metallic, and nondescript, but it didn't belong to me. I didn't use USB drives anymore. Everything I did was on the cloud. I hesitated, looking through the sliding glass door. Inside, I could see Tessa holding court, a glass of wine in her hand, laughing at something Lila the life coach was saying. I didn't storm in. I didn't scream. A strange, cold numbness had settled over me, a protective layer of ice. I picked up the USB drive and slipped it into my pocket. I grabbed my laptop and walked back to my car. I couldn't do this in the house. The house was compromised. I drove a mile down the road to a public beach access parking lot. Facing the ocean, I locked the doors. I opened the laptop, disconnected the Wi-Fi to prevent any remote wiping or syncing, and plugged in the USB drive. I expected photos. I expected content. What I found was a folder labeled PH, Finances. I didn't open the files. I didn't want to leave a digital fingerprint that I had been there. I just looked at the file names. Investor_pitch_deck. PDF. Foster_collateral_list. XLSX. Seabright_rental_projections. XLSX. And then, one file that made my breath hitch. refi_app_foster hs ... I pulled the drive out. My hands were shaking, not with fear, but with a terrible, crystalline realization. I picked up my phone and dialed the number for the fraud department of my mortgage lender. Coastal Lenders. I had the number saved. I had called them just yesterday to confirm my first payment date. The automated system took 3 minutes. The hold music felt like it lasted a lifetime. Finally, a human voice answered. Security Department. This is Mark. Hi. Mark, I said, my voice steady. This is Ariana Foster. I am calling regarding my mortgage on 14 Driftwood Lane. I suspect my personal information may have been compromised, and I need to check if there have been any recent inquiries on my account. One moment, Ms. Foster. Let me verify you. I gave him my social security number, my mother's maiden name, the irony of which stung, and my password. Okay, I am looking at your file, Mark said. I see the closing from yesterday. Congratulations, by the way. Thank you, I said dryly. Is there anything else? I hear the clicking of his keyboard. Well, that is interesting, he said. What? I asked. I see a hard inquiry from this morning, he said. A pre-approval request for a home equity line of credit. I closed my eyes. I did not authorize that. I said, who initiated it? It looks like it came through a broker. Mark said, a company called Foster Home Solutions? I felt the air leave the car. Foster Home Solutions. It sounded like a bad joke. Do you have a contact email for the broker? I asked. Yes, Mark said. It is admin@fosterhomesolutions.net. I wrote it down on the back of the deed request receipt. Mark. I said. That is a fraudulent application. I need you to freeze my credit file immediately and flag this inquiry. Consider it done. Ms. Foster, I am locking it down now. Nobody will be able to take a dime of equity out of that house. Thank you. I hung up. I sat there for a long time, staring at the ocean. The waves were crashing with violent indifference. Foster Home Solutions. It wasn't just a scam. It was a shell company. Tessa had created a fake brokerage to facilitate her own fraud. She wasn't just trying to borrow money. She was trying to become the middleman to her own theft. I started the car. When I walked back into the house, the atmosphere had shifted. The frantic energy of the arrival had settled into a sloppy, wine-soaked haze. The friends were scattered around the living room, scrolling on their phones or napping on the furniture. Tessa was in the kitchen, opening another bottle of rosé. She looked up as I entered. Her face flushed. "Oh, look who is back," she said, her voice slurring slightly. "Did you get the ice?" I didn't answer. I walked up to the island and placed 2 pieces of paper on the counter. The first was the copy of the deed request from the records annex. The second was the piece of paper where I had written Foster Home Solutions and the email address. Tessa looked at them. She blinked, trying to focus. "What is this?" she asked. "I called the bank." "Tessa," I said. She froze. The corkscrew in her hand stopped turning. "I know about the equity line application." I said, "I know about Foster Home Solutions. I know you tried to use my social security number to take out a loan against my house." For a second, just one heartbeat, she went pale. Her eyes widened, and the mask of the confident, spiritual guru slipped, revealing the terrified, desperate woman underneath. But then, the narcissism kicked in. The defense mechanism that had protected her from accountability her entire life slammed into place. She slammed the wine bottle down on the counter. "So now you are accusing me of fraud?" she shouted. The conversation in the living room stopped. 12 heads turned toward the kitchen. "I am not accusing you," I said calmly. "I am telling you what the bank told me." "You are unbelievable," she screamed, her face turning a mottled red. "After everything I have done for you, I am trying to help you build wealth. I am trying to leverage this asset so we can both be free, and you treat me like a criminal? You tried to take out a loan in my name without asking me." I said, "That is a crime. Tessa, it is a partnership," she yelled. "God, you are so small-minded. This is why you are alone. Ariana, you don't know how to trust. You don't know how to build anything. You just hoard your little salary and your little house and judge people who actually have vision." She was projecting so hard she was practically vibrating. I looked at her, and for the first time, I didn't feel the urge to defend myself. I didn't feel the need to explain that I wasn't selfish. I just saw the lie. "You created a fake brokerage," I said, "to steal my equity. I created a vehicle for our future," she shrieked. "And you ruined it. You ruined everything." She swept her arm across the counter, knocking the open bottle of wine onto the floor. It shattered, sending a spray of pink liquid across the cabinets and my legs. The room went deadly silent. Tessa stood there, chest heaving, staring at the mess she had made. I looked at the wine dripping down the white cabinet doors. "Clean it up," I said. Then I turned and walked out to the deck. I stood by the railing, my hands gripping the wood until my knuckles turned white. I was shaking, not from fear, but from the adrenaline of finally saying it. A few minutes later, the sliding door opened. I didn't turn around. "Ariana?" It was Paige Lorne. I took a deep breath. "I am fine." Paige. She walked up beside me. She wasn't holding a drink. She looked sober and sick. "I heard everything." She said, "Good." I said, "Ariana." She said, her voice low, "You need to know something." I looked at her. Tessa told us. She told us that if the retreat didn't generate enough engagement, if we didn't get the content, she wouldn't be able to refund our deposits. I frowned. "What do you mean?" "She promised a money-back guarantee," Paige explained, "but the fine print says it is based on brand performance. Basically, if the videos don't go viral, she keeps the money." I stared at her. "That is a pyramid scheme." "I know," Paige said, looking down at her hands. "That is why everyone is filming everything. That is why they are so pushy. They are terrified. Most of these women put the $2,000 on credit cards they can't pay off. They need the refund. They are trapped." I looked back through the glass. I saw the women cleaning up the wine, their faces tight with anxiety. They weren't having fun. They were working. They were hostages to an algorithm and a liar. "So if I kick you out," I said, "you lose your money." "Yeah," Paige said. "That is what she told us. If the energy shifts, the money stays." I felt a surge of pity, followed by a harder, colder resolve. Tessa had human shields. She had structured this so that if I enforced my boundaries, I would be hurting 12 desperate women, not just her. "Thank you for telling me," I said. Paige nodded. "I just thought you should know. She isn't just screwing you. She is screwing all of us." Before I could respond, the sound of a car engine cut through the wind. I looked down at the driveway. A familiar gray sedan had pulled up behind Tessa's SUV. It was Dale Mercer, and he wasn't alone. 2 other people were with him, a tall, thin woman with a clipboard and a man wearing a windbreaker that said, "Seabright Dunes Security." "They are back," I said. I walked down the stairs to the driveway. Paige followed me, hovering on the bottom step like a witness. "Mr. Mercer," I said. He didn't look at me. He looked at the house. He looked at the cars. He looked at the drone that was sitting on the porch railing. "Ms. Foster," he said. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a white envelope. "This is a formal citation," he said. I took it. It was thick. "You were warned yesterday," he said, his voice dripping with satisfaction. "We have documented continued commercial activity, drone usage, unauthorized occupancy, noise violations, and..." He pointed to the trash cans on the side of the house, which were overflowing with wine bottles and takeout containers. "Sanitation violations." "How much?" I asked. "The total is $4,000, he said. I felt my knees buckle. 4,000. And, he added, smiling a thin, cruel smile, "since this is a repeat offense within a 24-hour period, we have scheduled a hearing for Monday morning. If the fines are not paid by then, we will be filing a lien against the property." "A lien?" I asked. "For noise?" "For operating an illegal business," the woman with the clipboard said. She didn't look at me. She looked at the house with a hunger that unnerved me. "We take the integrity of Seabright Cove very seriously. You are enjoying this," I said, looking at Dale. He stepped closer to me. He smelled of peppermint and malice. "You are learning how things work here, Ms. Foster," he said softly. "We don't like complications. And your family? They are a complication." He signaled to his team. They got back in the car and drove away. I stood there, holding the envelope. "You are learning how things work here." It wasn't just a neighborly dispute. It felt coordinated. They had arrived right after the wine incident. They were watching too closely. I looked at Paige. "I need to go back to town." I said, "Again?" I missed something. I said, I got back in my car. I didn't go to the bank this time. I went back to the records annex. The clerk looked surprised to see me again. Back so soon? She asked. I need to see the file again. I said, but not the deed. I want to see everything filed in the last 6 months regarding the parcel. Everything. She sighed, but went to the computer. She typed in my address. There is a subfile, she said. For easement clarifications. Print it, I said. She handed me a stack of papers. I sat at a wooden table in the corner and read. It was technical language, surveying terms, coordinates, legal jargon, but one document stood out. Shore access easement clarification filed. May 12th. That was 3 weeks before I closed on the house. The document requested a clarification of public access rights through the dunes on my property. It was a request to widen the public path. And the filing party? Bracken Sloan Property Group. I stared at the name. I had seen it on coming soon signs for luxury condos on the other side of the bay. They were the biggest developers in the region. Why was a massive developer interested in a 5-foot path on my property? I looked at the map attached to the filing. The easement ran right along the edge of my lot, but if they widened it, as requested, it would cut into the buildable footprint of my land. It would make the house non-conforming. And if the house was non-conforming, and if the owner was hit with liens and fines, I felt a cold thread connect the dots. If I lost the house, if the HOA forced a sale or foreclosed due to liens, Bracken Sloan would be there to buy it cheap. They didn't want the house, they wanted the land, and they wanted the easement to build something bigger next door. The clerk walked by. Find what you needed? She asked. Do you know who represents Bracken Sloan locally? I asked. She laughed. Everyone knows that. Their local counsel is Mercer Associates. Mercer? I asked. Like Dale Mercer? No. His brother, the clerk said. But Dale used to work there before he retired. Now he just runs the HOA. My blood ran cold. It was a setup. The whole thing. The HOA wasn't protecting the neighborhood. Dale Mercer was soft target hunting for his brother's clients. He was using the rules to pressure vulnerable owners, like a single woman with no local connections, so they would sell to the developers. And Tessa? Tessa was just the useful idiot who had handed them the ammunition. I packed up the papers. My hands were steady now. The confusion was gone. I was in a war. I needed one more confirmation. I called Lila Hartwell, my real estate agent. She answered on the first ring, sounding cheerful. Ariana, how is the first weekend? Lila, I said, cutting her off. Why were the sellers so motivated? There was a pause, a beat too long. What do you mean? She asked. They were just ready to retire. Don't lie to me, I said. I am at the records annex. I see the easement filing from Bracken Sloan. I see the connection to the Mercer family. Lila was silent. Did you know? I asked. Did you know the HOA was trying to push this property onto the market? Ariana. Look, she said, her voice dropping. It is a small town. Things get complicated. The sellers were tired of the fines. They were tired of Dale Mercer measuring their grass every day. They wanted out. And you didn't tell me? I asked. You sold me a house that was being targeted? It was a legal sale, she protested. The house is great. You just have to play ball with the HOA. Just keep your head down. Ariana, don't make waves. I hung up. Don't make waves. I looked at the ocean. It was all waves. I drove back to the house. The sun was setting, casting a blood-orange light over the dunes. As I pulled into the driveway, I saw activity on the beach. I got out of the car and walked to the edge of the dune. They were there, Tessa and the 12 women. They were dragging driftwood into a pile on the sand, my driftwood, and in the center of the pile. They were stacking wooden pallets they must have brought with them. Tessa was holding a lighter fluid bottle. Okay, ladies, she shouted. We are going to light the fire of transformation. We are going to burn our pasts. I watched them, a bonfire. Rule number 1 of the HOA packet. No open fires on the dunes. Fine. $5,000. Immediate revocation of occupancy permit. If she lit that fire, the police would come. Dale Mercer would come. And he wouldn't just fine me. He would use it as the final strike to declare the house a nuisance property. He would place the lien. He would force the sale. And Bracken Sloan would get their land. Tessa wasn't just ruining my weekend. She was holding the match that would burn down my life. I looked at the scene. The women in their beige linen. The driftwood pile. The camera on the tripod capturing the magic. I didn't run down there screaming. That is what the old Ariana would have done. That is what they expected. I turned around and walked into the house. I went to the utility closet. I took out the heavy-duty flashlight. Then I went to the kitchen drawer and took out the scissors. I walked to the router I had unplugged earlier. I didn't plug it back in. I cut the cord. Then I walked to the smart hub that controlled the thermostat and the locks. I cut that cord too. I was going to save my house. But first, I had to let the darkness in. I walked out to the deck. I watched Tessa struggle with the lighter in the wind. "Do it," I whispered. "Light it." Because if she lit it, she would be breaking a state law. Not just an HOA rule. And if she broke a state law, I could have her removed by the actual police, not Dale Mercer's rent-a-cops. But I had to be ready. I took out my phone and started recording. The flame caught. The lighter fluid whooshed. An orange tongue of fire leaped up against the darkening sky. It was beautiful. It was terrifying. And it was the evidence I needed to end this. I stood in the shadows of my own home, watching my sister dance around the fire that was meant to destroy me. And I felt a strange, calm sorrow. The family narrative was about to detonate, and I was the one holding the detonator. The fire on the beach had sputtered out, killed not by my intervention, but by the sudden, violent shift in the wind that signaled the incoming storm. But the image of my sister holding the lighter fluid was burned into my retinas. It was the final piece of data I needed to shift my operating model from host to adversary. I walked back into the house. The sliding glass door clicked shut behind me, sealing out the roar of the ocean, but the noise inside was just as deafening. The bass from the Bluetooth speaker was shaking the floorboards. Laughter bounced off the high ceilings. I walked to the utility closet in the hallway. I opened the door and found the central hub for the house's smart systems. I pulled the main Ethernet cable from the modem. The blue light on the router flickered and died. Next, I opened the app for the smart locks on my phone. I engaged the admin lockout mode. This feature, designed for emergencies, disabled all guest codes and temporary access keys. Only my master code would work. Anyone who went outside now would be locked out until I decided to let them back in. Finally, I went to my portable printer, one of the few things I had unpacked for my home office setup. I printed 3 copies of a document I had drafted in the car. It was short. It was brutal. Notice to occupants: 1. No commercial filming or photography of any kind. 2. No guests permitted on the property beyond the registered occupants. 3. Quiet hours are in immediate effect. 4. Any violation of these terms will result in immediate eviction for trespassing. I taped one to the refrigerator. I taped one to the inside of the front door. I taped the third one to the bathroom mirror. Then I stood in the kitchen and waited. It took less than 2 minutes. The music cut out abruptly as the streaming service lost connection. "Hey!" someone shouted from the living room. "The Wi-Fi is down." I heard the shuffling of feet, the collective groan of a generation disconnected from its life support. Tessa marched into the kitchen. She was holding her phone, shaking it like a thermometer. "Ari, the internet is dead," she said. "I need to upload the bonfire stories before the algorithm resets. Fix it." I didn't look at her phone. I looked at her eyes. "I canceled it," I said. She blinked. "You what?" "I disconnected the service," I said, "and I locked the smart locks. If anyone leaves the house, they won't get back in." Tessa stared at me. Her mouth opened, then closed. For a second, she looked like a fish gasping for air. Then, the performance began. Her face crumpled. Her lower lip began to tremble. She brought a hand up to her chest, clutching her linen blouse. "Oh my God," she whispered. Her voice was loud enough to carry to the living room. "Ari, what is wrong with you?" She turned toward the doorway. making sure her audience was assembled. "You are scaring me," she sobbed. "You are acting so erratic." I stood still. I took my phone out of my pocket and hit record. "I am not erratic." "Tessa," I said, "I am protecting my property." She let out a wail. "Protecting? From who? From your own sister? From a group of women who just want to love you?" She fell onto a kitchen stool, burying her face in her hands. "I can't believe this," she cried. "I bring everyone here to celebrate you, to lift you up, and you treat us like prisoners? You are having a breakdown. Ariana, that is what this is. You are having a mental health crisis." I watched her. I recognized the pattern perfectly. It was the foster family maneuver. When you cannot win on logic, you attack the sanity of the opponent. If I was having a breakdown, then my boundaries were just symptoms. If I was unstable, then my no was just a delusion. The other women gathered in the kitchen doorway. They looked at Tessa, sobbing beautifully on the stool, and then at me, standing stone-faced with my phone. "Is she okay?" Lila, the life coach, whispered. "She is manic," Tessa sobbed, peeking through her fingers to check the reaction. "She has been like this since she lost her last job. She is paranoid. She thinks everyone is out to get her." "I didn't lose my job," I said calmly. "I am currently employed, and I am recording this interaction for my attorney." Tessa's head snapped up. "Your attorney?" she hissed. "Yes," I said, "since you forged my signature on a release form and committed identity theft to apply for a loan. I thought it was prudent to involve legal counsel." Tessa stood up. The tears vanished instantly, replaced by a cold, hard rage. "You are such a liar," she said. "You are trying to gaslight me in front of my friends." She turned to the group. "Guys, I am so sorry. My sister she is not well. We just need to give her space." She tried to herd them out of the kitchen, but the spell was breaking. The women looked uneasy. The word attorney had cut through the abundance mindset fog. I walked over to the refrigerator and tapped the sign I had taped there. "Read the rules," I said. "No filming, no noise." Tessa laughed. A harsh, jagged sound. "You are pathetic," she said. "You think a piece of paper controls me?" Then she stormed out, trailing her disciples behind her. I stayed in the kitchen. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from the effort of holding back the scream that had been building in my throat for 30 years. A moment later, Paige Lorne walked back into the kitchen. She held up her phone. "You need to see this," she said. I looked at the screen. It was a website. The Phoenix Method. Upcoming retreats. Paige scrolled down to the FAQ section. Q. Where is the coastal sanctuary located? A. We have secured a private residence in the exclusive Seabright Cove Dunes for the season. I looked at the date stamp at the bottom of the page. It had been updated 3 weeks ago. She planned this before she called me. I said. Paige nodded. Before she called you. Before you even closed on the house. She knew you were buying it. She probably tracked the sale online. She built the entire business model around using this house. I felt a wave of nausea. It wasn't a visit. It was a takeover. She had sold tickets to my life before I had even unlocked the door. Thank you. Paige, I said, can you email that link to me? Done, she said. She looked at the sign on the fridge. By the way, she said, if you need someone to testify that she called you unstable while you were standing there calmly, I am in. I looked at her. Why are you helping me? Because I have a sister too, Paige said, and because I hate being scammed. She walked out. I went into the small office den off the hallway. I closed the door and dialed Mara Klein. Mara was a real estate attorney I had met at a Chamber of Commerce mixer years ago. I prayed she was working on a Saturday. She picked up on the fourth ring. Mara Klein. Mara. It is Ariana Foster. I said, I have an emergency. I spilled everything. The forgery, the loan application, the drone, the HOA fines, the breakdown accusation. When I finished, Mara was silent for a moment. Ariana, she said, her voice sharp and professional. You are in a very dangerous position. I know. I said, no, I don't think you do. She said, if the HOA files a lien, and if this developer, Bracken and Sloan, is involved, they can accelerate a foreclosure faster than you can imagine. Seabright Cove has obscure bylaws about nuisance properties. If you are declared a nuisance, they can void your occupancy permit. You can't live in a house without an occupancy permit. My stomach dropped. They could kick me out of my own home. What do I do? I asked. You need to establish adverse possession against your sister immediately. Mara said, you need to serve her with a formal notice of trespass, and you need to issue a cease and desist for the commercial use of your image and property. I have to serve her? I asked. Like, hand her papers? Yes, Mara said, and you need to do it in front of witnesses. You need to break the narrative that she is a guest. You need to make her a trespasser. I can email you the templates right now, she added. Print them, sign them, hand them to her, and record it. I don't know if I can. I stammered. She is my sister. Ariana, Mara said. She isn't acting like your sister. She is acting like a corporate raider. You have to decide right now. Do you want to be a nice sister, or do you want to be a homeowner? I looked out the window. The sky was turning a bruised purple. The wind was whipping the dune grass flat. Send them, I said. I hung up. I watched the email come through. I printed the documents. Notice of trespass. Cease and desist order. The words looked violent in black ink. As I was stapling the pages, a piece of paper slid under the office door. I stared at it. It was on thick, cream-colored cardstock. I walked over and picked it up. Seabright Dunes Homeowners Council Notice of Emergency Hearing regarding 14 Driftwood Lane. Violation, continuous commercial activity / nuisance behavior. Date, Monday, June 4th, 9 a.m. Penalty review. Potential lien placement and occupancy revocation. They weren't waiting. They were accelerating. I read the fine print. Failure to pay outstanding fines of $5,500 prior to the hearing will result in an automatic judgment. $5,500. The price had gone up. I felt the walls closing in. The house, which I had bought for peace, was now a cage. Then, the lights went out. The hum of the refrigerator died. The printer whirred down. The room plunged into gray gloom. The storm had arrived. I opened the office door. The hallway was pitch black. From the living room, I heard screams, not of fear, but of excitement. Oh my God! The aesthetic! Tessa shouted. Sarah, get the candles! This is perfect! It is so moody! I walked into the living room. Tessa had lit dozens of candles. She was directing the women to pose by the windows, where the rain was lashing against the glass. Look terrified, but beautiful, she yelled. Channel the storm! She was using the power outage as a set piece. I stood in the shadows, invisible to them. Tessa, I said. My voice was low. She jumped. She couldn't see me. Only my silhouette. You need to stop, I said. The power is out. This isn't a game, she laughed. Oh, Ari, you are such a killjoy. The universe is giving us drama. We are just receiving it. She turned back to Sarah. Get a shot of me staring out at the rain, she commanded, capturing the chaos. I turned away. I couldn't watch it. I needed to check the breaker box. Maybe it wasn't the grid. Maybe they had blown a fuse with their hairdryers and ring lights. I felt my way through the dark kitchen to the garage door. As I passed the dining room, I heard a voice. It was Tessa's voice, but she wasn't shouting. She was whispering. She was standing in the dining alcove. Away from the others, I could see the glow of her phone screen illuminating her face. She was on a call. I stopped. I pressed myself against the wall. I know, she whispered. The reception is terrible. Pause. No, she hasn't cracked yet. But she is close. My heart hammered against my ribs. She is freaking out about the fines, Tessa whispered. She is terrified of the HOA. If she can't handle it, she will sell. She always runs. You know that. She is weak. Pause. I will get her to list it. Don't worry. And when she does, I will make sure you get the first look. Just make sure my commission is in the escrow instructions. Commission. She wasn't just stealing my equity. She was acting as a bird dog for a buyer. I will handle her, Tessa said. Just get the paperwork ready for the offer. Lowball her. She will be desperate. She hung up. I stood in the dark, paralyzed. She was selling me out, literally. She was actively working to distress the property, creating the noise, incurring the fines, driving me to a breakdown so that I would panic and sell the house cheap. And she was getting a kickback. Who was on the phone? It had to be someone connected to Bracken Sloan. Or maybe the Foster Home Solutions wasn't just a fake lender. Maybe it was a front for a flipping scheme. I realized then that the cruelty wasn't a byproduct of her selfishness. It was the point. The cruelty was the strategy. I backed away silently. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I went back to the office. I sat in the dark, lit only by my phone screen. I had to move fast. I opened a new note on my phone. I titled it, Timeline of Fraud. I started typing. May 10th. Tessa updates website with Seabright location. May 12th. Bracken Sloan files easement request. June 1st. I close on the house. June 2. Tessa arrives with commercial crew. June 2. HOA issues immediate fines. Collusion. June 3. Tessa forges release form. June 3. Foster Home Solutions queries my credit. June 3rd. Tessa caught discussing forced sale and commission. I attached the photos I had taken, the flyer, the screenshot of the website, the photo of the HOA notice, the receipt Paige had sent me. I compiled it all into a PDF. I sent it to Mara Klein. Then, I looked up the number for the Seabright Cove Ethics Office. Hallie Quinn had mentioned them. I found an email address for the town clerk. I forwarded the packet to them too, specifically flagging Dale Mercer's name and the Bracken Sloan connection. Subject: Corruption and Harassment, 14 Driftwood Lane. I hit send. The battery on my phone was at 12%. I sat there in the dark, listening to the rain hammer the roof. I felt a strange sensation. It was grief. I was grieving the sister I had wanted, the sister I had tried to buy with patience and forgiveness for 30 years. That sister didn't exist. There was only this predator in the other room, wearing her face. I stood up. I walked to the kitchen. The storm had calmed slightly, settling into a steady, rhythmic downpour. The candles in the living room had burned low. Tessa was in the kitchen, eating an avocado straight out of the skin with a spoon. She saw me. Still pouting? She asked. I looked at her. You are working with Bracken and Sloan. I said. She stopped eating. The spoon froze halfway to her mouth. I don't know what you are talking about. She said. I heard you. Tessa. I said. I heard you on the phone. You are trying to force me to sell so you can get a commission. She put the avocado down. She wiped her mouth with the back of her hand. She didn't deny it. She just smiled. A slow, pitying smile. You are over your head. Ari, she said, you bought a money pit. The HOA hates you. The neighbors hate you. You can't afford the fines. You can't afford the repairs. I can afford them. I said, no, you can't, she said. You are going to fold. You always fold. Remember the apartment in Chicago? Remember the job at Deloitte? When things get hard, you run. I am just setting up a soft landing for you. She stepped closer to me. I am saving you from yourself, she hissed. You should be grateful. When you sell, I will help you find a nice little condo somewhere inland, somewhere quiet, where nobody expects anything from you. She poked me in the chest. Because you are not a beach house person. Ari, you are a background person. I looked at her finger on my chest. I looked at her face. She really believed it. She believed she could bully me out of my own existence. But she made a mistake. She thought she was talking to the sister who wanted to be liked. She was talking to the sister who had nothing left to lose. You are right, I said softly. She smirked. See? I knew you would see reason. I am not a beach house person, I repeated. I stepped back. But I am the owner, I said. And you are trespassing. Tessa laughed. Oh, here we go with the lawyer talk again. You won't do anything. You never do. She turned her back on me to grab a wine glass. I looked at her back. Peace was never going to be given. It had to be enforced. I turned and walked out of the kitchen. I didn't go to my room. I went to the front door. I unlocked the deadbolt. I opened the door to the rain and the wind. I stood there, waiting. I wasn't running this time. I was digging in. The storm outside had settled into a steady, rhythmic drumming against the roof. But inside, the air was static, charged with the humidity of too many bodies and the tension of unsaid things. I stood in the hallway, the printed documents in my hand feeling heavier than their paper weight. I took a breath. I visualized the outcome I wanted. Not a screaming match, not a hair-pulling fight, just an extraction. I walked into the living room. Tessa was lounging on the sofa, scrolling through her phone, the glow illuminating a smirk that hadn't left her face since our conversation in the kitchen. The other women were scattered around, nursing their wine, looking bored and trapped in the dark house. Tessa, I said. She didn't look up. We are busy. Ari? I walked over to the coffee table and placed the documents down on top of a stack of fashion magazines. This is a notice of trespass, I said. My voice was steady. I kept it low. Gentle even. I refused to be the shrill, hysterical caricature she was selling to her followers. Tessa glanced at the paper, then burst out laughing. Oh my God, she said, looking around at the group. Do you see this? She printed a form. You have 1 hour to vacate the premises. I said, that includes you, your guests, and all equipment. If you are not gone by 10 o'clock, I will have you removed by law enforcement. Tessa picked up the paper and waved it like a fan. You are so dramatic, she said. You are not going to call the cops on your own sister. Mom would never forgive you. I am not asking you as a sister. I said, I am telling you as the homeowner, you are trespassing. Tessa's eyes narrowed. She stood up, dropping the pretense of amusement. She pulled out her phone and hit record. She thrust the camera inches from my face. Say that again, she challenged. Tell the world how you are kicking your own family out into a storm. Go on, show them how unstable you are. The lens was a black eye staring at me. I could see my own reflection in the glass, pale and tired. I stepped back, raising my hands to chest height, palms open and visible. It was a defensive posture, non-threatening but firm. You are not allowed to film here, I said. Tessa stepped closer, pushing the phone into my personal space. Look at her shaking, she narrated to the camera. She is having a psychotic break. She is unsafe. You are not allowed to film here. I repeated, keeping my voice flat. She is threatening us, Tessa shouted. She is threatening guests. I didn't take the bait. I didn't scream. I am not. I didn't try to grab the phone. I just held my ground. You are not allowed to film here. Suddenly, a hand reached out and covered the lens of Tessa's phone. Tessa gasped and lowered the device. It was Paige Lorne. Stop it, Tessa, Paige said. Tessa blinked, stunned. Excuse me? I said stop. Paige said, she asked you to leave. You work for me. Tessa snapped. Get back in line. No. Paige said, I don't work for you. I am a customer, and I want a refund. The room went deadly silent. What? Tessa asked. I paid $2,000 for a wellness retreat, Paige said, her voice rising so everyone could hear. I was told this was a donated venue. I was told it was a legitimate program, but this is a scam. You are squatting in your sister's house, and you are using us as human shields against her HOA. Tessa's face went white. That is a lie, she hissed. Is it? Paige asked. She pulled out her phone and held up the receipt I had sent back to her. I have the payment confirmation, and I have the screenshot of the website where you claim to have a permit for this place. Paige turned to the other women. She is keeping the money. Guys, Paige announced, unless we get viral content, that is the contract. We are not guests. We are employees who paid to be here. The reaction was instant. The women on the floor sat up. The boredom evaporated, replaced by the sharp, metallic taste of panic. Wait, Becca said. Standing up? Is that true? I put it on my visa, another woman said. If this is fraud, I can dispute it. Tessa looked around the room, her control slipping. You are being ridiculous, she shouted. We are a collective. We are building something. We are trespassing, Paige yelled back. And I'm not getting arrested for your pyramid scheme. I want my money back. Now. The room erupted. Voices overlapped. Accusations. Demands. Confusion. Tessa backed away toward the fireplace, looking for an exit. Suddenly, a heavy pounding on the front door silenced everyone. It wasn't a polite knock. It was the authoritarian thud of a fist. Tessa's eyes darted to the door. That is the police, she whispered, pointing at me. She actually called the police. I walked to the door. I knew it wasn't the police. I opened it. Dale Mercer stood there, flanked by two other men in raincoats. They looked like vultures huddled against the wind. Ms. Foster, Dale said, stepping into the foyer without waiting for an invitation. You can't come in, I said, blocking his path. This is an emergency hearing of the Seabright Dunes Homeowners Council, Dale said, pushing a wet piece of paper toward me. Under Bylaw 14, Section 2, we have the right to enter a property to inspect active nuisance violations. He looked past me into the living room, where the candles were flickering and the women were standing in a circle of accusation. Well, he said, smiling that thin, cruel smile, it looks like the commercial activity is still ongoing. He turned to the men behind him. Document everything. He said, we are moving for immediate revocation of the occupancy permit. Tessa rushed forward. Mr. Mercer, she cried, putting on her best victim voice. Thank God you are here. My sister is having a mental health crisis. We are trying to calm her down, but she is being so aggressive. Dale looked at Tessa, then at me. We can help with that, he said. If the owner is incapacitated, the council can appoint a temporary steward for the property. It was so transparent. They were going to use Tessa's narrative to seize control. I took my phone out of my pocket. I dialed a number. I held the phone up. Speaker, I said. A woman's voice filled the silent foyer. Clear, sharp, and terrifyingly calm. This is Mara Klein, attorney at law. Who am I speaking with? Dale Mercer froze. His eyes flicked to the phone. Ms. Klein, he said, his voice dropping an octave. This is an internal OA matter. Mr. Mercer, Mara said, I am recording this call. I am advising you that you are currently trespassing on private property. Bylaw 14. Section 2 requires 24 hours written notice for an inspection. Except in cases of fire or flood. There is no fire. There is no flood. There is a nuisance, Dale sputtered. There is harassment, Mara corrected. And there is selective enforcement. We have records of 20 other properties in Seabright Cove that have hosted gatherings of this size without citation. The only difference here is that Ms. Foster's property is subject to an easement request by Bracken and Sloan. The name hung in the air like smoke. Dale's face went from sour to gray. I don't know what you are talking about, he said. We have the filing. Mr. Mercer, Mara continued, and we are aware that your brother represents the developer. If you do not vacate the property immediately and rescind these fines, we will be filing a suit for conspiracy to defraud and tortious interference with a contract. Dale took a step back. The two men behind him exchanged a nervous glance. They were volunteers, neighbors. They hadn't signed up for a lawsuit. We are just following the rules, Dale muttered. Leave, I said. Dale looked at me. The arrogance was gone. He looked small. We will review the case, he said stiffly. He turned and walked out into the rain. His team followed him. I closed the door. I turned back to the room. Tessa was standing by the fireplace. She looked diminished, but her eyes were still blazing with defiance. You think you are so smart, she spat. Bringing in a lawyer? You are wasting your money. I walked over to the dining table. I laid out my evidence, piece by piece, like a dealer laying out cards. The retreat landing page from May, the forged location release form, the rental flyer Hallie had found, the credit inquiry from Foster Home Solutions, The easement filing from Bracken and Sloan. I looked at Tessa. I know about the easement. Tessa, I said. She blinked. A tiny involuntary twitch of her left eye. I know you were working with them. I said. I heard you on the phone. You were trying to distress the property so I would sell to Bracken and Sloan, and you were going to take a commission on the back end. Tessa's mouth opened, but no sound came out. The women in the room gathered around the table. Looking at the documents. Foster Home Solutions? Becca read aloud. That is the broker you told us to use for the payment plan. She looked at Tessa. You are the broker? Becca asked. No, Tessa shouted. It is just a name. It is a shell company, I said, and she used it to try to take out a home equity line on this house this morning. I looked at Tessa. That is grand larceny. Tessa. That is 15 years in prison. Tessa started to shake. The walls were closing in. The narrative she had built. The spiritual guru. The abundant leader. The loving sister. Was dissolving under the weight of paper and ink. You are ruining my life, she screamed. It was a raw animal sound. She swept her arm across the table, knocking the papers to the floor. I did this for us, she shrieked. We could have been rich. I had a deal. I was going to fix everything. You were going to steal my house. I said, I was going to save you, she sobbed. You don't know how to live. Ari, you are boring. You are small. You would have rotted in this house. I was going to give you an out. She collapsed onto the rug. Weeping. Please, she choked out. Please, Ari, don't call the cops. We can fix this. I will pay you back. I swear. Just keep it private. Like always. Don't humiliate me. I looked down at her. My entire life. This had been the dynamic. Tessa broke things, and I fixed them because I was afraid of her pain. I was afraid of her shame. I smoothed it over. I paid the bail. I apologized to the neighbors. I felt the old reflex rising in my chest, the urge to kneel down, to hug her, to say, it's okay. We will figure it out. I looked at Paige, who was watching me closely. I looked at the forged signature on the floor. I chose a new reflex. I chose silence. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just watched her cry. The silence stretched out, filling the room, heavier than any scream. Then, the doorbell rang again. Tessa's head snapped up. Don't answer it, she begged. Please. I walked to the door. I opened it. Hallie Quinn was standing there. She was wearing a yellow fisherman's slicker. Beside her was a man in a gray suit who looked very unhappy to be out in a storm. Ariana, Hallie said, this is Mr. Henderson, from the Seabright Cove Ethics Office. I stepped aside. Come in, I said. Mr. Henderson stepped into the foyer, shaking off his umbrella. Ms. Foster, he said, we received an urgent complaint regarding a Mr. Dale Mercer and a conflict of interest involving your property, and we were forwarded a packet of documents regarding a potential fraud scheme. I nodded. They are on the floor, I said, pointing to the living room. Mr. Henderson walked into the living room. He saw the papers scattered on the rug. He saw the candles. He saw Tessa sobbing on the floor. He looked at Tessa. Are you Tessa Foster? He asked. Tessa scrambled backward, crab walking away from him. Who are you? She gasped. I am an investigator for the town, he said. I need to ask you some questions regarding a rental listing for this address and a solicitation of funds for a commercial event. Tessa scrambled to her feet. I am leaving, she shouted. You can't keep me here. She grabbed her purse. She looked at me. Her eyes were wild. She pulled out her phone again. The reflex was automatic. If she couldn't win the reality, she would try to win the edit. She pointed the camera at me. She is keeping me hostage, she screamed at the phone. My sister is unsafe. She is unstable. She set me up. I stood there, watching her. I didn't hide. Paige stepped in front of the camera, then Becca, then Lila. They formed a wall between me and Tessa. Stop it, Tessa, Becca said. It is over. We are witnesses, Lila said. We know what you did. Tessa lowered the phone. She looked at the wall of women. The women she had called her tribe, her sisters. They were looking at her with disgust. She let out a sound of pure frustration. "Fine," she screamed. "Keep the house. It is cursed anyway." She pushed past Mr. Henderson and ran out the front door into the rain. She didn't take her bags. She didn't take her equipment. She just ran. The front door slammed shut. The silence that followed was absolute. "Mr. Henderson cleared his throat. "I will need to collect these documents," he said, "and I will need statements from everyone present regarding the payments made to Ms. Foster. I will give you everything." Paige said. The next hour was a blur of logistics. The women packed their things with efficient, apologetic silence. They exchanged contact info with Mr. Henderson. They moved the furniture back, one by one. They left. Becca apologized to me on the way out. "I am sorry I used your laptop," she said. "I didn't know. It is okay." I said, "Finally, it was just me, Paige, and Hallie standing in the foyer. You have a hell of a family." Hallie said. I looked at the door where Tessa had exited. "Not anymore," I said. Hallie nodded. "I will tell the council to back off," she said. "With Henderson involved, Dale is going to be too busy hiring a defense lawyer to measure your grass. Thank you." "Hallie," I said. She patted my arm, a rough, awkward gesture, and left. Paige stood there with her bag. "I am sorry about your weekend," she said. I looked at her. "You saved me." I said, "When you stood in front of the camera, thank you." Paige shrugged. "Us background people have to stick together." She smiled, a tired, genuine smile. "If you ever need a witness," she said, "or a friend who actually knows what the word means, call me." "I will," I said. She walked out into the night. I locked the door. I walked through the house. It was quiet. The candles had burned out. The smell of Tessa's perfume was fading, replaced by the clean, sharp scent of the rain coming through the drafty windows. I picked up the papers from the floor. I put the furniture back in its place. I threw the Phoenix tote bags that had been left behind into the trash. I walked to the sliding glass door and looked out. The storm was passing. The moon was trying to break through the clouds. I expected to feel triumphant. I had won. I had kept the house. I had defeated the HOA. I had exposed the fraud. But I didn't feel triumphant. I felt hollow. I felt a deep, aching exhaustion in my bones. I was grieving the loss of a sister I never really had. Mourning the hope that maybe, just this once, she had come because she loved me. But beneath the grief, there was something else. Silence. Real silence. Not the silence of holding my breath, waiting for the next blow, but the silence of safety, the silence of a boundary that had held. I was alone, and for the first time in my life, alone didn't feel like a failure. It felt like freedom. I took out my phone. I opened my email. I composed a message to Kira Mendel at Stratus and Wren. Subject: Personal disclosure / potential legal matter. Dear Kira, I am writing to proactively disclose a legal situation involving a family member that occurred at my property this weekend. I have retained counsel and have notified the local authorities regarding an identity theft and fraud attempt. I wanted to ensure the firm was aware in case of any external noise. I have handled the matter. I am safe, and I will be at work on Monday. Best, Ariana. I hit send. I put the phone down on the table. I walked into the kitchen, made a cup of tea, and sat in the dark, watching the moonlight on the ocean. My house, my rules, my peace. I took a sip of tea. It tasted like victory. Thank you so much for listening to I Finally Bought a Beach House for Peace. Then my sister called. I'm coming with 12 friends, so I hope you enjoyed this story of boundaries, betrayal, and reclaiming one's life. I would love to hear from you. Please leave a comment below letting me know where in the world you are listening from. It is always amazing to see how far these stories travel. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing to Revenge Stories for more tales of justice and drama. And don't forget to share your thoughts on Ariana's decision in the comments. Did she go too far? Or was it exactly what Tessa deserved? Until next time, protect your peace.